Joining me now from New York is Michaela Angela Davis. She is a writer and image activist. Michaela, welcome to the show. You knew Maya Angelou. What was she like? What does she mean to you?
Oh, what a life, what a woman. I had the pleasure of working with her when I was a fashion director at Essence Magazine, and we styled her for a cover. And I had an extraordinary experience where she literally locked me in the bathroom and talked to me for 15 minutes about integrity in the media, about maintaining dignity when facing injustice. I got a personal bit of Maya poured into me, and for that, I'm forever grateful, and it changed the trajectory of my career.
You know, as we've been reporting this, she had something of a traumatic childhood. It shaped the rest of her life, what she became. What was her childhood like?
Well, it was full of trauma, from whether it was racial trauma from the times, sexual trauma from abuse, but there was something about her story that made her this phenomenal woman. And I think that she represents the greatest American possibility. She was female, she was black, she was poor, she was in the South. These are all the strikes against you, right? And suffered sexual abuse and suffered racial abuse at the height of Jim Crow, and still she was able to literally rise above it. And I think one of the things that is most profound about her is that she didn't bring that bitterness into her work. She didn't pull the bitterness of the South, of the abuse, of the discrimination into her life. She was able to speak on injustice and speak on the most cruelties of humanity, but never be cruel. And for that, she transcended all of that abuse. And she gave us that as a possibility, that we can transcend the worst abuse, that we can go beyond, and that we can move forward and not pull our past with us, but see the possibility of our future. And for that, I don't know of any other human being that has had that expansive life to be able to give us that ideal over and over again. You can transcend, you can rise, you can be phenomenal, and no one can stop you.
She led a very tumultuous life in her young days, as you've just mentioned. I mean, she was a streetcar conductor, a cook, she tried drugs. We know a lot about her life at that stage, but she said that in 1974 there was a turning point, and that's when she actually saw a friend of hers shooting up heroin, and that changed her, set her on a new path.
Yes. And also, though, she was also quite the artist from the very beginning. She was a dancer, she was a writer, and she made very critical connections, whether it was with Malcolm X or Martin Luther King or Baldwin or Amiri Baraka. Once she found that she was worth living, she lived the most full life and attracted those kind of people to her. Again, she was not willing to be defined by the brutality, but by the beauty that she could control, right? So she was even a stripper. Do you know what I mean? And then here she is now, one of the most dignified people in the world. So her life was like 100 lives in one. And I think that to me is the most profound thing about her. It wasn't the darkness that she lived in, but the light that she saw. And her ability to do so many things. She wrote songs, she wrote plays, she directed, she wrote so many books, she got so much work done. And at the end, you just think, what a life. What a life, and how much legacy and how much proof of that life she has left.
You have one of her books there. I was wondering if you could read for us your favorite passage from that book.
So my favorite, there's so many, but this one in particular, she says, I must remember that the brute, the bigot, and the batterer are all children of God, even if they don't. And I feel like that really is how she lived her life. She was an exemplary example of that ideal, that no matter how brutal, you know, and you've made those connections of a brutal past, but she moved forward as if they all were children of God. And that was also in her last tweet that you left us, to understand that there's a bit of that in all of us, even if we don't remember it. That is, I think, the greatest, that's what I hold as her greatest message to me and to humanity.
And one of her other major achievements was the fact that she brought her work to a mass audience. She won Grammys for her
Yes.
work.
Yeah, and really so well beloved across all like you can't even find the most left or the most right go against Maya Angelou. Do you know what I mean? Like she had this ability, she had an expansive spirit that included a lot of people. And very few figures in this day and age are able to do that. Most people tend to be very polarizing, but Maya was everybody's mother, you know, like the way that she spoke, the warmth, the smoothness, and the wisdom that was able to really touch everybody. Like if you don't like Maya Angelou, you know, something is really wrong. I've yet to meet that person.
And you were talking about her work in the civil rights movement. She actually ended up on the very notorious, what was it called, the House Un-American Activities Committee.
Yes. Well, I mean, and I think for a lot of people who questioned authority, and particularly if you were black and female, you became suspect. But and she made, you know, certain alliances with folks like Malcolm X that the government was looking at. So her alliances also made her suspect. But her truth telling, and I think that's true with any revolutionary. And I would contend that Maya Angelou was a revolutionary, radically loving human being. And so when you radically love yourself or you radically love your people, it becomes suspect.
Okay, Michaela Angela Davis.
And she was.
Thank you for joining us, Michaela.
Thank you. It's my honor.
Well, that's it for this edition of The Heat. We'd love to hear from you, so please send us your questions, comments, and story ideas to theheat@cctv-america.com. And now you can listen to CCTV America programs, that's 24/7, from anywhere in the United States by simply calling 231-460-1199. I'm Anand, Naidoo in Washington, D.C. Thanks for watching.